this process, while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
Bueno, la CIM tiene una agenda enorme en el tema de democracia y de liderazgos. El primer ámbito tiene que ver con la gobernanza electoral, para que esta gobernanza electoral responda a las necesidades con las que fue creada, y es buscar los espacios de redistribución del poder. Después hay un programa interamericano sobre liderazgo de las mujeres, donde generamos conocimiento y también tenemos cursos de capacitación. Hay un poderoso curso que ha llegado a más de 1000 mujeres con más de 15 ediciones, que es para candidatas electorales, en las cuales conversamos con ellas, pero también nos ponemos en una agenda de solidaridad y articulación y alianzas entre las mujeres, a pesar de las múltiples diferencias ideológicas o de partidos políticos. También hablamos de los temas de violencia política, porque no es lo mismo llegar que quedarse, y la violencia política es una forma de ejercicio de disciplinar a las mujeres para que vuelvan al mundo de lo privado y enfrentar la violencia, hacer buenas investigaciones, buenas leyes que permitan sancionar la violencia política. Es parte de las aspiraciones de la CIM en este programa de liderazgo de las mujeres. La aspiración histórica de las mujeres es estar en el mundo de lo público, que nuestro trabajo sea remunerado y que tenga un reconocimiento. COVID ha puesto en evidencia una profundización de las brechas existentes para el logro de este objetivo. Estas brechas existentes ahora dan cuenta de que podríamos tener un rezago de más de 2 décadas en el mundo laboral, que el cierre de brechas que se previó que podía tardar 100 años en cerrarse, ahora se habla de 135 años para cerrar la brecha entre los hombres y las mujeres. Entonces, nuestro objetivo es que miren el derecho de las mujeres al empoderamiento económico, que el statement "quédate en casa", que es un viejo conocido del patriarcado, no sea que nos quedemos en casa siempre, y que entendamos que la inserción de la mitad de la población, de este talento humano que tiene una serie de ventajas competitivas, es necesario para el crecimiento económico. De manera que la CIM está colocando esta realidad, está colocando las necesidades de las mujeres y está haciendo unas recomendaciones de rutas para poder cumplir con el derecho al empoderamiento económico y con el crecimiento económico que requieren nuestras empobrecidas economías en tiempos de COVID.
Hoy, esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos, no podemos ser neutrales.
more than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to our member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS SETI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, the Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools on virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. SETI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector institutions, we offered micro, small, and medium enterprises access to online tools and training, increasing their visibility and participation in e-commerce, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS SETI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Center's program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. A new network of Caribbean SPDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the C2, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. SEDI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty. It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience building agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, or global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
Bueno, la CIM tiene una agenda enorme en el tema de democracia y de liderazgos. El primer ámbito tiene que ver con la gobernanza electoral, para que esta gobernanza electoral responda a las necesidades con las que fue creada, y es buscar los espacios de redistribución del poder. Después hay un programa interamericano sobre el liderazgo de las mujeres, donde generamos conocimiento y también tenemos cursos de capacitación. Hay un poderoso curso que ha llegado a más de 1000 mujeres con más de 15 ediciones, que es para candidatas electorales, en las cuales conversamos con ellas, pero también nos ponemos en una agenda de solidaridad y articulación y alianzas entre las mujeres, a pesar de las múltiples diferencias ideológicas o de partidos políticos. También hablamos de los temas de violencia política, porque no es lo mismo llegar que quedarse, y la violencia política es una forma de ejercicio de disciplinar a las mujeres para que vuelvan al mundo de lo privado y enfrentar la violencia, hacer buenas investigaciones, buenas leyes que permitan sancionar la violencia política. Es parte de las aspiraciones de la CIM en este programa de liderazgo de las mujeres. La aspiración histórica de las mujeres es estar en el mundo del público, que nuestro trabajo sea remunerado y que tenga un reconocimiento. COVID ha puesto en evidencia una profundización de las brechas existentes para el logro de este objetivo. Estas brechas existentes ahora dan cuenta de que podríamos tener un rezago de más de 2 décadas en el mundo laboral. Que el cierre de brechas, que se previó que podía tardar 100 años en cerrarse, ahora se habla de 135 años para cerrar la brecha entre los hombres y las mujeres. Entonces, nuestro objetivo es que miren el derecho de las mujeres al empoderamiento económico, que el statement "quédate en casa", que es un viejo conocido del patriarcado, no sea que nos quedemos en casa siempre, y que entendamos que la inserción de la mitad de la población, de este talento humano que tiene una serie de ventajas competitivas, es necesario para el crecimiento económico. De manera que la CIM está colocando esta realidad, está colocando las necesidades de las mujeres y está haciendo unas recomendaciones de rutas para poder cumplir con el derecho al empoderamiento económico y con el crecimiento económico que requieren nuestras empobrecidas economías en tiempos de COVID.
Hoy, esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
more than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to our member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS SETI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, The Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools on virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. SETI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector institutions, we offered micro, small, and medium enterprises access to online tools and training, increasing their visibility and participation in e-commerce, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS SETI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Centers program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. A new network of Caribbean SPDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the C2, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. SETI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk.
I understand that the video is ready now. Sorry, not item 4, item 3.
It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable,
and this should be a video presentation of Mr. Moles Paul, who is a professor and researcher at the State University of Haiti. And this is with regards to item 3, which is the celebration of the International Day of Creole Language and Culture. So if we have the video ready, can we please proceed?
Chair of the Permanent Council, ambassadors, and representatives of the permanent missions of member states, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The Creole language is a major part of our identity in the Caribbean. It is a source of linguistic and cultural wealth. It developed in various regions of the world, typically islands, due to European colonization. Haitian Creole was born in the French colony of Santo Domingo due to the mixing of African slaves and the colonial language. The slaves were brought to that island and used for forced labor. There are different linguistic groups, and we find Creole languages that result from European colonization in the 16th and 17th centuries on various islands in the Caribbean. And it created a Caribbean identity that is largely based on oral tradition. Creole language is a major part of identity in the Caribbean. And the people who belong to this group use the language to identify their belonging to it. There are some differences that we observe among Creole speakers. Today, wars and natural disasters, as well as political situations, have led to displacement, and many people and families have had to move to other countries to escape from difficult situations back home. They have to adapt to the culture of their new country. That is one of the biggest challenges that we see. These families have to fight for their identities. One of the biggest obstacles that has to be overcome is the obstacle of language. In order to strengthen the Creole-speaking populations of the Caribbean, we need to use Creole in official capacities and select one Creole for that, and then translate it into the other Creoles that we see in the Caribbean. We could perhaps choose Haitian Creole for this purpose. Now, Haitian Creole has the largest number of speakers, native speakers. It is a very vital language, and it is the first one that has a more standardized grammar, and it is used frequently. It is the French-based Creole that is spoken the most due to migration of Haitian people throughout the world, namely to Europe and North America. Creole can be used for communication within the islands of the Caribbean. It helps strengthen our identity, and it can be used for communication. CARICOM and the OAS have both looked at the role of Creole to see how it can be better integrated into the work of these bodies. Thank you.
Thank you to Professor Paul for that presentation. And we'd like to ask the delegation of Haiti to please pass on our thanks to Professor Paul. I now invite member states wishing to address the International Day of Creole Language and Culture, which we are celebrating today, to take the floor. We have, first we recognize Haiti. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Monsieur le Président.
Chair. On the International Day for the language and for Creole language and culture, I would like to deliver a statement both in French and Creole to celebrate our linguistic and cultural heritage. The interpreters will make sure that this is transmitted in the languages of the organization so that everyone has access to the message. Chair, my delegation would like to express its gratitude for having included this matter in the order of business for today's session. We want to thank the permanent missions of Barbados, Dominica, and St. Lucia for contributing to this initiative. Allow me to welcome the statement by Professor Paul Morales, whose comments, clarifying comments, have allowed us to further understand the depths of the Creole culture. The International Day of Creole Language and Culture, established by the UNESCO in 1983, is celebrated on October 28th throughout the Americas. Our country and many other countries in the region, or for our countries, Creole language and culture represent the pillars of identity and society, which are what we're celebrating today in our organization. Chair, for 40 years, university representatives, Creolists, linguists, artists, authors, and activists from the Creole-speaking world all throughout the globe come together to celebrate this day. Since its beginnings, Creole culture has strengthened and enriched contributions which are illustrative through illustrative examples such as Oswald Duran, Aimé Césaire, Edouard Glissant, Franck Etienne. In the Americas, which are marked by a legacy, a complex legacy of slavery and segregation, the Creole language has become a symbol of resistance and cohesion. It's been a way to fight for independence in countries like Haiti and continues to shape cultural identities of Caribbean nations. In the crossroads that is the Americas, the Creole language represents a unifying force. It's a common voice that transcends diversity and the diversity of our backgrounds and our histories. Creole has been recognized as an official language in the Constitution starting in 1987. Which provides for the creation of a national academy to ensure its regulation. Today, the ACHA plays a role in promoting the language and Creole culture, both in Haiti and in the diaspora. Chair, by celebrating today the Creole language and culture, we bring dignity to all those, regardless of their origins, who participate in this group. We therefore celebrate the Creole language that not only represents us today, this is part of our democratic charter. The Creole languages connect communities throughout the world and enrich our societies through culinary traditions, architecture, music, and a whole way of life. Recognizing that Creole culture at this level allows us, or recognition for Creole culture at this level allows us to deepen our understanding of the values that bring people together. We recognize the potential that Creole has for, or as a tool for development. Much more than just a symbol of resilience, Creole is an engine for inclusion, a way to access knowledge, and a lever for economic and social development. In a world that is increasingly connected, it's crucial that local languages like Creole are acknowledged for their capacity to encourage progress. Thanks to digital technologies, Creole can help to bridge peoples across barriers. And by supporting access to digital tools in Creole, we can offer new generations ways to get an education, to be creative, to integrate in the global economy. And so by celebrating the Creole language, we provide new ways forward. Chair, my delegation would like to express its
l'importante question de la célébration de la culture de la langue créole.
Repeating the speech now. We would like to thank the permanent missions of Barbados, Dominica and St. Lucia for their contributions to this initiative. Allow me to welcome the statement by Professor Paul Morales, whose clear comments allowed us to explore the depths of the Creole culture. The International Day for Creole Language and Culture, established by UNESCO in 1983, is celebrated every October 28th throughout the Americas and elsewhere. For Haiti and many other countries in our region, Creole language and culture represent pillars of identity and society, making the celebration of this day a necessity within our organization. Chair, for 40 years, university representatives, Creolists, linguists, artists, actors, and activists of Creole-speaking communities the world over come together to celebrate this day. Since the beginning, Creole culture has been enriched and strengthened through the contributions of figures, illustrative figures such as Oswald Durand, Aimé Césaire, Edouard Glissant, Franck Etienne, and so many other writers and critical thought leaders who created a rich literary and philosophical tradition. In the Americas, marked by complex legacies of slavery and segregation, the Creole language has become a symbol of resistance and cohesion. It has allowed for the fight for independence in countries like Haiti and continues to shape the cultural identities of Caribbean peoples. In this broad crossroads that is the Americas, the Creole language represents a unifying force, a common voice that exceeds the diversity of our backgrounds and our histories. In Haiti, Creole has been recognized officially as alongside French, starting with the Constitution of 1987, which provides for the creation of a national academy to regulate the language. Today, the Academy of Haitian Creole plays a role in promoting the language and Creole culture, both in Haiti and in the diaspora. The recent mobility in Creole-speaking communities within the Americas and elsewhere contributes to strengthening this influence. Chair, celebrating today is in perfect harmony with the values of the American Declaration of Human Rights and Duties, which declares the equality and dignity of every person, regardless of their language or origin. We therefore take this opportunity to strengthen ties with the broader Creole-speaking family, which is based on a language that represents our common heritage. We welcome the precious contributions of Creole-speaking communities in the Americas, and we highlight the importance of preserving and promoting this cultural and linguistic diversity as is enshrined in the Inter-American Democratic Charter. One moment, Chair. As I had requested, I understand, Chair, I understand. But this is very important as a Caribbean nation that speaks Creole. It's important that you hear both the Creole version and that you respect that we want to express ourselves in the official language of the organization. And I ask that you give me 2 or 3 minutes to finish. It is very important because the Creole language has played a vital role, a very important role in us achieving our independence. Chair. The Creole language and culture are cultural bridges and allow for dialogue, connecting communities throughout the world and enriching our societies through culinary tradition, architecture, music, and an entire way of life. Recognizing Creole culture at this level allows us to deepen our understanding of the values that bring our peoples together and allows us to honor our heritage. By celebrating today Creole language and culture, let us look to the future to capitalize on the immense potential that Creole represents as a tool for transformation and development. More than just a symbol of resilience, Creole is an engine for inclusion, a way to access knowledge, and a lever for economic and social development. In a world increasingly interconnected, it's crucial that local languages like Creole are recognized for their ability to encourage progress. Thanks to digital technologies, Creole can transcend boundaries and contribute to cultural development at a global scale. We are offering new generations a way to access education. They can be more creative. They can integrate in the global economy by preserving their legacy. Let us therefore celebrate the Creole language.
And it is unfair to the other.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We now give the floor to the delegation of Peru. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Chair, on behalf of the Group of 10, I am pleased to speak before this Permanent Council as we celebrate the International Day of Creole Language and Culture, established in 1982 as tribute to the historic legacy and spiritual legacy that we carry with us. This legacy spreads throughout the Americas and Africa. It crosses oceans and continents. We congratulate Haiti, Barbados, and St. Lucia for their initiative to commemorate here the history, the language, and culture of Creole communities. This is intrinsically linked with building the American identity. This has arisen out of a context of exploitation, slavery, and racism. The Creole language was an element of cohesion and a vital element to the fight for independence in American populations. And so, it has been a pillar for shared traditions and a continental identity. Recognizing Creole language and culture by UNESCO is the result of arduous efforts by academics and political leaders who saw in preserving and promoting that language and culture a way towards strengthening the cultural identity and social cohesion. OAS member states namely those with Creole heritage, are called upon to reflect on the importance of strengthening cooperation at the sub-regional level, regional and global as well. Creating an agency dedicated to promoting such diversity would be a key step forward to promoting alliances that could allow for a greater exercise of human rights and development, integrating the richness of Creole language in relevant public policy. As a representative for Peru and on behalf of the states that make up the Group of 10, I would like to express how much we identify with the idea that linguistic and cultural diversity contributes a lot to humankind. And this heritage is a symbol of resilience and creativity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the delegation of Canada. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Chair. We are glad to commemorate, along with you, the International Day of Creole Language and Culture. At the outset, we would like to thank the delegations of Haiti, Barbados, and St. Lucia for having brought this commemoration before the Permanent Council. To us, this is an opportunity to honor and promote the linguistic and cultural wealth of communities that speak Creole throughout the world, and namely in our region. We would like to highlight the diversity, the creativity, the cultural legacy of Creole speakers, as well as contributions in art, traditions, customs from this community. It's important that we preserve and promote this rich linguistic and cultural wealth.
This day of commemoration also highlights the importance of multiculturalism in ensuring that all people can maintain their identities, take pride in their ancestry and culture, and have a sense of belonging. Diversity and inclusion are not just a characteristic of our societies, but a source of strength and resilience. Our collective identity is rooted in the recognition that our many languages, traditions, and beliefs enrich our social fabric. The International Day of Creole Language and Culture recalls the importance of recognizing and celebrating the significant contributions of Creole language to global diversity. It is also something to encourage us to continue to be committed to the preservation and promotion of these unique languages, thus contributing to the safeguarding of a valuable linguistic and cultural heritage for future generations. Merci en pile.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the delegation of Colombia. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Chair. Thank you. We want to thank the permanent missions of Haiti, Barbados, Dominica, and St. Lucia for proposing the inclusion of this celebration for the International Day of Creole Language and Culture for today's order of business. And we want to take this opportunity to highlight that the Caribbean is a region of great cultural diversity where language, or Creole language and culture, play a fundamental role in connecting many different communities from Africa all the way to the Americas. This is part of the complex expression of a Caribbean identity that has been forged by the interaction between African, European, and indigenous communities over time, whose cultural fusion has led to a unique identity that can be seen through language, music, dance, food, and Caribbean traditions. At the end of the day, you are the ones who bring joy and spice to our region. You radiate resistance, resilience, but also diversity. We cannot lose sight of the fact that the Creole culture was born in a time of colonialism and slavery in the Caribbean, where enslaved Africans who had been ripped from their lands and forced to come to the Americas brought with them their traditions and beliefs. They used unifying elements to forge a path towards freedom. Over time, this culture has been enriched with the contributions of other cultures that arrived in the Caribbean. Within the linguistic diversity of Colombia, there are some 78 different native languages, among which 65 or 75 are indigenous. One, Rumani, which is spoken by the Roma community, and you also have Repalenge, which is spoken in Palenque, and Creole, spoken in San Andrés, Providencia, and Santa Catarina. In Colombia, we know these native languages as San Andresian Creole, and it has similarities with other languages based on English, like, for example, the languages spoken in multiple islands surrounding our territory. Slavery around our archipelago is similar to, or was similar to, what we saw in other areas of the Caribbean. And this linguistic contribution enriched our literature and our traditions in the Caribbean. You have authors like Aimé Césaire, among others, who have used the Creole language to express a Caribbean identity and denounce colonial oppression. Reggae, calypso, zouk, and soca are musical expressions, musical genres that come to us from Creole contexts. Our gastronomy is delicious thanks to Creole contributions. The celebrations, the music, the dances, the language, the customs make up a Caribbean identity that allows us to bring communities together around a shared heritage, that allows us to strengthen or enrich our contributions at the global level. Colombia believes in the importance of promoting and preserving Creole culture with all its elements, and we are convinced that cultural awareness and education can help Caribbean nations to value and protect their heritage. The government of President Gustavo Petro has worked very hard in this regard and has sought to build new bridges among our societies to claim the rights and aspirations of peoples with respect to the communities that they are brought together. Thank you.
For the floor to the delegation of Chile. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Gracias, presidente.
Thank you, Chair. We align with everything said thus far. Chile finds celebrating this day relevant. One might think that Creole is not something very close to the hearts of those of us who live in one of the southernmost nations in South America. But that's not necessarily true. Creole language and culture was part of the mestizo phenomenon that we saw in Chile. In recent decades, Afro-descendant communities in Chile have fought against the invisibility and the silence that they've suffered under for so long. As the representative of Haiti said a moment ago, Creole languages are intrinsic to the identities of so many of our nations here. And so we celebrate with enthusiasm this International Day of Creole Language and Culture. There are nearly 200,000 Haitians in Chile today, so we hear Creole in businesses, out on the street. Many of our children now have a mother or a father from Haiti. And this is part of our society now. This migration has led to greater diversity, plurality, and we've even adapted our social institutions. Chile is learning from this. We've improved in health centers, migration institutions. We have Creole documents available now. And so, Chair, this long, thin nation near the southernmost point of the world has good reason to join in this celebration, to fight against silence. We bear witness to the fight of so many people by doing so, and that includes people in Chile. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the delegation of Grenada. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, colleagues. First, my delegation expressed appreciation to the permanent missions of Haiti, Barbados, St. Lucia, Dominica for their initiative in requesting the inclusion of this celebration of the International Day of Creole Language and Culture on the agenda of this regular meeting of the Permanent Council. Recognizing and celebrating Creole language and culture here at the OAS is of importance to so many of us. In fact, probably we can safely say after the intervention of Chile and Colombia, of importance to the entire hemisphere. It should not escape us that the requesting delegations comprise a French-speaking Caribbean nation as well as English-speaking Caribbean states, some of which can testify that in their country the official language is less spoken than the Creole language. The International Day of Creole Language and Culture holds profound significance, therefore, and it serves as a powerful reminder of the tragic experiences at the same time of colonization endured by our ancestors. During this period, language was used as a tool of domination and exploitation, and language was also used as a means of escape of the domination and exploitation. Our enslaved African ancestors were stripped of their cultural identities, including their language and some of their own practices, customs, traditions. In the face of this opposition, Creole languages emerge as forms of resilience and symbols of resistance to oppression. In Grenada, for example, where the history of French and British colonization, our Creole is an amalgamation of English and French, English infused with French. But then again, there were indigenous languages, some of which our colleague from Colombia have mentioned, which were dissipated with the lives of the indigenous peoples along the way. Although its use, the Creole languages have been declining in recent years, they still remain present and persist in our vernacular and our folklore. Today, Creole stands as a bridge to our heritage, a blend of traditions and an embodiment of the diversity that defines our nations and the prospects on which we walk towards our future. The global recognition, therefore, of Creole languages underscores that they hold equal cultural value and dignity alongside other languages and oral expressions. For Creole-speaking countries in our sub-region of the Caribbean, this day is a celebration of adaptability and resilience, and we honor the spirit of perseverance that it represents. The survival of flourishing Creole languages across generations illustrate the strength and unity of those who, despite enduring great hardships, persevered and preserved their identities through language and culture. In this context, we therefore acknowledge that the preservation and celebration of Creole languages are intertwined with the legacies of colonization as well that our region continues to address and address intensely. As we honor Creole language and culture for the historical resilience, we reaffirm our joint commitment to the pursuit of justice, including, as we say in our CARICOM region, including reparatory justice. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. I see no further requests for the floor, so I would like to take this opportunity to thank the requesting permanent missions for their initiative in bringing this celebration to the attention of the Permanent Council. Especially, I ask the delegation of Haiti to convey our appreciation to Professor Moses Paul for his presentation. And of course, our gratitude to all the delegations for your remarks here today on the International Day of Creole Language and Culture. The interventions have been duly noted and they will be recorded in the minutes of this meeting. If there are no objections, it is so agreed. Agreed. Distinguished representatives, we now proceed to the last item on our agenda, which is other business. And I now ask if there are delegations that wish to bring any informative issues to the attention of this council. And we offer the floor to the delegation of Canada. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. I'm taking the floor to share a short statement from the LGBTI core group. October 26 marked the observance of International Intersex Awareness Day. On this occasion, on behalf of the members of the OAS LGBTI core group, we reaffirm our commitment to upholding and advancing the rights of intersex individuals across the Americas. We recognize the ongoing challenges faced by intersex people, including harmful practices, stigma, and discrimination. In light of these issues, we stand united in advocating for protections that uphold the dignity and autonomy of intersex persons, honoring the principles of equality and inclusion enshrined in our shared inter-American values.
The Organization of American States recently demonstrated its dedication to human rights in June 2024's General Assembly Omnibus Resolution on Promotion and Protection of Human Rights. This resolution underscores a collective responsibility to counter discrimination and address human rights violations and abuses against persons in situations of vulnerability, including those who face discrimination based on innate variations in sex characteristics. We support and are committed to the resolution's emphasis on advancing protections for marginalized groups and enhancing inclusive policies across the Americas. Globally, the United Nations Human Rights Council resolution adopted in April 2024 on combating discrimination, violence, and harmful practices against intersex individuals marked a historic step forward. The resolution expressed grave concern about the use of medically unnecessary and deferrable interventions to alter the bodies of intersex children to fit binary norms. Several members of the OAS co-sponsored this resolution, which expresses further concern about such interventions being pursued without the full, free, and informed consent of the individuals themselves. To further our efforts, we call upon OAS member states to adopt and advocate measures that, 1, prohibit unnecessary medical interventions on intersex children, respecting their bodily autonomy. 2, implement educational programs to raise awareness and dismantle harmful stereotypes surrounding intersex bodies. 3, ensure access to healthcare, justice, and support services tailored to the needs of intersex persons and their families. Together, let us reaffirm our commitment to building an inclusive region that upholds the rights of intersex persons and all marginalized persons. We stand alongside intersex rights defenders and reaffirm the human rights of are universal and indivisible, and join them in embracing the diversity of human experience. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now offer the floor to the delegation of Chile. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Gracias, Presidente.
Thank you, Chair. There are 3 things we'd like to share with member states. Next Monday, 18 November, for the group on the Inter-American Democratic Charter, we'd like to invite you to a panel discussion with experts from the hemisphere to discuss an important topic that is addressed in the 5th article of that convention. So at 10 a.m. we will have this hybrid event in the Padilla Vidal room. The second topic, Chair, is that on November 7th, our mission received the quarterly newsletter from the Secretary General about the work done by the departments for the past 4 months. And I believe this goes back to something that we discussed in 2023. I think that this newsletter can be improved upon and made more accessible, and we would be very happy to hear from delegations that wish to work on this issue so that this newsletter can be even more useful to our work. The third announcement is a sad one: the death of Carolina Validia Torres, a Chilean diplomat and lawyer who is the first woman to be the Undersecretary of Foreign Affairs. And she was a feminist and worked under the government of former President Piñera. She was extremely kind person. She was an extremely professional person, and she worked on various areas of national policy. Therefore, our president has decided to make next Wednesday a day of tribute to her. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador. And please accept our condolences to the government and the people of Chile on that loss. We now offer the floor to the delegation of the United States. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Today, as we recognize Native National American Heritage Month in the United States, my delegation takes the floor in order to address a legacy of harm that indigenous peoples continue to endure. Last month, President Biden issued a historic apology for the United States government's role in the federal Native American boarding school system, which forcibly removed indigenous children from their families, resulting in profound cultural loss, trauma, and an unknown number of deaths. President Biden's remarks serve not only as an acknowledgement of generational harm, but also attempt to support the healing and remarkable resilience of indigenous peoples while offering a greater commitment to cultural preservation. President Biden's apology is a foundation for action, underscoring my government's transformative investments in indigenous communities with more than $45 billion allocated for infrastructure, education, and healthcare in indigenous territories. This unprecedented funding has been matched by initiatives to address language and cultural revitalization, recognizing the need to restore the identities once targeted for erasure. Additionally, we are working to expand mental health services, particularly trauma-informed care, as essential tools in addressing the lingering impact of the boarding school experience. The United States also acknowledges Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which documented the impacts of residential schools on First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities. Canada's efforts provide a model, one that illustrates the power of acknowledgement, documentation, and collective healing. In 2016, Canada raised this issue before the OAS, underscoring the importance of this dialogue in advancing Indigenous rights across our region. The U.S. recalls these efforts and values our ongoing bilateral cooperation in addressing similar histories and advancing shared goals for justice. Mr. Chair, the United States is also extending this commitment regionally. My government supports Indigenous self-determination initiatives, including local governance, natural resource management, and economic empowerment, making Indigenous communities and peoples and helping strengthen their voices in decision-making processes. Environmental stewardship programs with Indigenous leaders focus on preserving traditional lands, reinforcing the ties between cultural survival and environmental conservation. The Indigenous Peoples Policy of the United States Agency for International Development further strengthens this approach, prioritizing Indigenous-led development and participation. Initiatives include collaborations with Indigenous women and youth leaders, recognizing the role in preserving cultural knowledge and environmental resources. Programs supporting Indigenous languages and traditional knowledge serve not only as a means of cultural preservation, but also as pathways to resilience, encouraging intergenerational exchanges that fortify Indigenous identities. The United States brings this matter to the Permanent Council not only to share our national steps, but also to acknowledge many of our shared histories and our mutual responsibility for addressing the legacies of such harmful policies. Together, we can honor the heritage, resilience, and contributions of Indigenous peoples across the Americas, ensuring that their rights and voices shape our collective future. Thank you.
Thank you. We now offer the floor to the Permanent Observer Mission of Spain. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Chair, thank you very much for allowing me to take the floor here at the Permanent Council. I know that this has been a lengthy session, so thank you very much. This is the first opportunity I have to speak here since the Dana catastrophe took place. The floods in Spain that are still ongoing, and we continue to be very concerned about continued climate and weather events that are occurring at this time. But as I was saying, this session is the first opportunity for me to express our thanks to you for your solidarity through this forum of the OAS. At the outset, I would like to express my deepest condolences to the families who lost loved ones. And I would also like to send my solidarity to people who are struggling due to the floods, the neighbors, where we have friends and acquaintances who are still alive, thankfully, but their lives have been completely turned upside down. And we hope that the continuing rain do not claim more lives. I would also like to recognize everyone who is doing the hard work of rescue and reconstruction, security entities, firefighters, the military, and as well as volunteers who are offering their solidarity and coming from all over Spain, but also from all over the Americas. The Permanent Observer Mission of Spain to the OAS would like to thank you for all of the messages that we have received, condolences for the families who have lost loved ones, and the solidarity that you have expressed with those affected by the flooding in my country, as well as offers of support. We have tried to answer to all of your messages, but I would also like to note for the record here our words of thanks. Thank you to the Ambassador of Belize and Chair of the Permanent Council for his warm, kind words at the beginning of this session. And thank you to all colleagues during this meeting who offered their solidarity and affection. I would also like to thank Luis Almagro, the Secretary General, who expressed words of solidarity and support right after the event occurred. I would also like to thank member states who observed a moment of silence during their meetings, and I'd like to thank the colleagues and authorities of the organization who have offered support here at headquarters. Dear colleagues, to your governments, I would like to express deep thanks for the outpouring of support and affection. Every day we are more and more aware of the magnitude of this tragedy, and we reaffirm the urgent need to take action to fight climate change. Over the past 2 weeks, we've gone through some pretty hard days. Our hearts are with those in Valencia, and thank you for making us feel like we're not alone. We're supported by you. Thank you for your support for all of the victims affected by this incident. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. And we reiterate our solidarity with the people of Spain on this tragedy. Even, I should say, as we are monitoring a system in the Western Caribbean that is threatening my country of Belize, Honduras, Nicaragua, the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, Jamaica, Cuba. There's a system, even as we speak, that's developing, and these climate-related events just keep coming. So we all have to stand together in solidarity and support each other. Colleagues, there are no further requests for the floor, so there being no further business to consider, this meeting is adjourned. Adjourned.